So today I'll be discussing the tools that you'll be using to design
What did you say to me?
In Inkscape. I think we should change that name because it's very hard to pronounce. I think we should just call it the IK, short for Inkscape. So welcome to the Inkscape interface. So if you opened up your Inkscape, it should look something like this without all of this. So the first thing you want to do is check on your right, make sure enable snapping is off. So what this does is that it automatically snaps objects that are near to each other. So that can be very irritating, especially when you're trying to move your object somewhere and then it just goes another direction. So the first tool is the select and transform objects tool. So with this tool you can select and transform objects, you can move them around. Let me just control undo. You can also rotate them, as you can see, and you can also change their shape and size. So I can make it smaller, I can stretch it around, but we don't want to work like that. We want everything to be perfect. So if I hold control and then I drag any one of those arrows, as you can see, the object stays in proportion and it grows or decreases in size. So our next tool is the edit path tool. So with this tool I can select objects with paths. So these little gray things are called nodes. Sorry for that. These things are called nodes. So as you saw just now, these allow us to change the shape of objects. So if I click and drag, it changes the shape of the object. So I can double click anywhere on the path to create another node, click and drag. So as you can see, this in this particular place is a corner. So if I wanted to make that a curve, I would go here on top, click on the last option between those four, and then it turns into a curve. Here are different options that you can play around with. If you want to delete a node, just select it and click backspace. Select it, hit backspace. So I'm just going to control undo to get the original shape. So as I told you before, I'm not going to waste your time with any tools that you're not going to use. So the third tool, trick object by sculpting or painting, I'm going to skip that. I'm going to go on to the zoom in and out tool. So as you can see, my mouse has turned into a magnifying glass with a plus sign. So plus sign means if I click and drag, I'll zoom in. If I hold shift, it turns into a negative sign. So if I click and drag while holding shift, it will zoom out. So let's just zoom in on to that. As you can see, I've zoomed in. Now if I click and drag while holding shift, it will zoom out. But this is very redundant, especially if you want to completely zoom out. So if you want to completely zoom out and get a nice view, just click on number 2 on your keyboard and then you just give that. So if you're using a mouse, I don't know what model you're using, but if you have that scrolling wheel on your mouse, if you hold control and you move that scrolling wheel, you can actually zoom in and out much quicker. So that's a hack that I use. Our next tool is the measurement tool. So if you click and drag, it will show you the distance between the 2 points as well as the angle between the last point and the x-axis. So if I click on the next tool, the create rectangles and squares tool, click and drag, it will give me a rectangle. So if I go here at the bottom, I can actually change colors: yellow, green, blue, purple, whatever. So that was just a fun tip. So if I click on control undo, I just want to remove that. There we go. So if I hold control, click and drag, it will give me a perfect square. So most of the tools in here, if you hold control, it will give you an accurate result of that tool, if I can say so. So our next tool I don't use, which is the create 3D box tool, and then the next tool, which is the create circles tool. If I click and drag, it will give me an oval like circle. So we don't want that. So if you want a perfect circle, you hold control, click and drag, and then it will give you a perfect circle. And that's it for today's video. This video was part 1 of a 3-part video tutorial on Inkscape, or IK as we're calling it now. Be sure to watch the next videos on how to make stars, spirals, and how to add and edit your text. Please also like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'm also on Facebook at Munya Design. Thank you.